can I say hello to Alice and hello to Carl? And if you just turn your videos on, and I will hand over to Alice. Alice is going to do the demonstration, and Carl will obviously share while he's here. He's got two hats on this morning, Carl has. So far away, Carl. Do you want to introduce yourself first, Carl, and then we'll go from there?
Yeah, sure. Simon, thank you so much for the invitation. Hi, everyone. Great to join you on this webinar. I'm Carl Reeder. So for those of you who don't know me, I serve in a couple of different positions, actually about 5 or 6, but the ones that are relevant for today's call. I'm joint chairman at D&T Chartered Accountants. So D&T is a multi-award winning firm with about 3,000 clients, multi-million turnover. We were one of the first firms in the UK to embrace online accounting. We were first partners of Xero. We like to think that we can see what's happening, where things are going next. So that's with my D&T hat on. And this year I was asked by the gang at PI to serve as their head of accounting. Now, just for clarity on what head of accounting means, it's an Australian term, it's an Australian job title. It doesn't mean I do the numbers for them because I'm the world's worst accountant. Instead, what it means is that I act effectively as a bridge between the supplier and the accounting community. So I help to translate some of the stuff that they come up with in terms of product and try to find the relevance for the accounting community and communicate it effectively, and vice versa, take back feedback from the accounting world and my real life experience of working in a practice and feed it into PI so that they can help develop the software in the way that would actually be useful for us rather than a software engineer.
Totally. Thank you, Carl.
Am I good? Sorry, Alex. Alice, I'll shut up.
No worries. Perfect. Thank you so much, Carl. Helpful to kind of hear where you sit with one of your many hats. I wear fewer hats. I have one hat at PI at the moment, which is basically a EMEA partnerships manager. So I work with general ledgers like Xero, QuickBooks, accounting boards, different apps and different consultancy groups to basically spread the word about PI and basically raise as much awareness about us as possible. But my previous hat that I wore was literally bringing firms onto the platform and working out any pain points prior to them sort of signing up. So I'm very much used to a lot of the questions that do come up when people are comparing different apps. And some of the actual onboarding processes you go through in terms of the actual nitty gritty. So more than happy to answer any questions you have, yeah, looking forward to hearing what you all think. So in terms of what we're actually going to talk about today, I basically want to walk you through exactly where practice ignition has come from and what problems we actually solve for you, how practice ignition appears to the client, how you can actually use it in your firm, and then actually where we're going. So what do we have planned? Where do we see the product going? So some of you are probably PI users. Some of you might have looked at us a couple of years ago. Some of you may be completely new to us. So I just want to be able to kind of cater to all of you and give you a really nice overview of exactly sort of, where we are today. So if any of you attended last year's ACCA Roadshow, that sort of, I think, around the country in October, you may have come across our founder, Guy. So Guy founded his own accountancy practice over in Australia, I think about 9 years ago now. And he was one of the first Xero users. He was sort of a poster boy for Xero and was kind of pasted on every single PowerPoint presentation going, mainly because he just had such a brilliant tech stack and he was using an app for absolutely everything, and it was a really seamless process. The one area that quickly became obvious was a problem was in the onboarding side of things, because he actually reached 2 million of revenue within 2 years. And if you can think about, if you're doing that from scratch, the number of new clients you're bringing on, that's a lot of onboarding. And there wasn't at that point an app that actually could automate that onboarding process, which is where Practice Ignition actually came from. So if we kind of look at the sort of the breakdown of the problem, that Guy was facing, globally actually are facing, because I think we should probably be aware that anyone who's sitting on this webinar is probably a lot more sort of up to date in terms of actually seeking out developments and sort of the latest things going on in the industry than, let's say, the average accountant out there. But most people are still going through this process, which is they're probably putting a Word document together, copying and pasting bits and pieces over from their template. Probably loads of different people in the firm doing it in different ways. So they're editing it, they're then printing it, they're then signing it and scanning it and sending it out to the client. I don't know about you, I can never get a printer to work when I want it to. And in terms of trying to edit a Word document, it's probably one of the more painful experiences you can have on any kind of Microsoft app. It's all pretty tedious and it takes a really long time. So then from the client's perspective, once you've gone through all those different steps, what are they having to do? They're having to print, sign, scan and send document back. You've just sat down, had a conversation with your client and said, we're going to transform your business. I can't wait to work with you. We've got all these different tools that are going to just completely overhaul how the function of your business actually works. And then you send through a Word document afterwards. It's not actually reflecting that conversation and that you've had and the value that you can give to your client. Then how are we getting paid? It's all getting a bit repetitive now, isn't it? We're printing, we're signing, we're scanning and we're sending. And in order to actually get payment, that's a lot of hoops to have to get your client to sort of jump through and a lot of delays there. So you can see where I'm going with this. Your cash flow is likely going to be affected if you do have that sort of process going ahead. Once they've signed it, where are most firms even keeping track of all of this? Usually it's on some big unwieldy spreadsheet where they're sort of copy and pasting a client in, and it's not intuitive, it breaks easily. Is it actually giving us any kind of data from this? Is it easily accessible? Are we getting any reminders? No, is the answer to all of that. And it pretty much starts to look like a foreign language. So that is where Practice Ignition came in to sort of solve all of those problems. And Practice Ignition was sort of kicked off about 7 years ago, and we still perform all of those sort of fixes to all of those problems. That's our core functionality, but the product has grown so much since then that we now are able to sit within your firm and basically automate and help with different processes wider than simply that engagement letter that's going out. So we'll take a look at all of that today. So let's jump in to actually what a proposal looks like. I always think it's best to just sort of start with the finished product of what your client is actually going to get from you and what you're going to work towards building. So your client would have received their proposal like this, simply by an automated email that's gone out from your email address with a link to the proposal. So there's no attachment to an email, there's no download, there's no physical document or anything like that. It's all this kind of up-to-date link that will keep sort of updating, which is a much sort of more interactive way of doing things. So this is what your client gets, and you'll notice it's a huge upgrade on your Word document. Your Word document's had a massive facelift. And in fact, actually, if you did look at Practice Ignition maybe sort of 3-4 years ago, you'll notice we've actually updated quite a lot of our proposals as well. So they look absolutely amazing. So on the left-hand side, you've got the space for a marketing brochure here. We've actually got a design team who, for every new sign up, we will actually create a marketing brochure for you with your own branding, colours and logos and everything, because we've got an in-house expert who's great with design, and that's not what you sort of signed up to with your job. Leave it to us, and we'll create that for you. Let us take care of the marketing. So that's a really great opportunity to kind of shout about other services you might offer, pop in a testimonial. At this point, we've even had a lot of firms putting in kind of like COVID related content in there as well. So you're really flexible about whatever brochure you pop into your proposal. We've also got space for a video as well. I won't let that play any longer because it'll be talking over me, but an amazing opportunity to either sort of record a video of yourself using an app like Loom. You might have a testimonial you want to pop in there. It might be something like we've got here in this example, next steps of what's going to happen once it's signed and accepted. And again, it's really about following up with that conversation you've had with your client with something that does wow them. And as I say, we're completely geared towards accountants and bookkeepers, but we've now actually got an even wider kind of range of industries who have started to use us because they've actually been clients of an accountant who's been using Practice Ignition, and they've received this proposal and they've loved it so much they've actually rolled it out in their business as well. So that is kind of evidence itself that people love these proposals, and they really do make quite a difference. You can also pop your note in there. So basically your client's just going to click through a bit like an e-commerce checkout. So they'll get the service summary page, and here they can see exactly what services they've opted in for and what's included within that. And we want to keep it really high level at this point, a really nice, concise overview of exactly what's included, what's not included. I want to minimise scope creep and just keep it really, really transparent so you're on the same page from the beginning. Now, in terms of your services, you can basically be as flexible as you like with these. We don't sort of conform you to one way of having your sort of your service offering set up. If you want it super granular and you want, you know, to sort of scale it, so it might be payroll of up to 50 transactions, as I've got in my example here. It might be that you have sort of scalable bookkeeping services, for instance. Build up. You can absolutely have it as granular as you like to suit the client. Alternatively, you might go for a package approach, and you might have sort of 3 tiers. And basically, in your Practice Ignition service library, you can be as flexible as you like, and we can pop in whatever content you want in there. We also have a load of sample services. So we conducted a study of 500 UK accountants last year and number crunched loads of that data to basically get a set of best practice services and pricing for you. So if you are wanting that support, you can either take our off the shelf pricing, or we also have a masterclass resource for you, which basically will actually allow you to calculate what you should be charging for your own practice, according to, you know, your sort of output and the hours that go into each sort of piece of work. So however you want it structured, we can support that. They've then got the billing schedule page, which is where they can see exactly what they're due to pay you and when. So I've put in a bit of a complex one here just to kind of show you a few different billing types that we offer. So I've actually done some pro rata, some catch-up work here for some bookkeeping. Excuse me. And I've also popped in some monthly recurring amounts. And then we also did a split deposit here for this payroll service, with a balance amount as well. We offer hourly, we offer estimate, we offer on completion, we offer on acceptance, we offer monthly recurring payments. So we can basically, again, be completely flexible around what your client needs. And at the moment, with Corona, this is something that a lot of our partners have really used very effectively to put in, you know, pay half now, pay the balance later. It might be sort of putting in a payment plan for various different payments. So we understand that, you know, every client is different, and you might need to support them with a different payment plan if you needed to. The important thing is getting paid for it. Oh, Simon, are we jumping in with a question?
Yeah, if I can do, Alice, just before you move on to the payment bit, a couple of clarifying questions. One from Graham, please. What we're looking at now, does that arrive in the email to the client, or is there a link in the email that takes them to this on a website? Can you just give us some clarity on how that works?
So basically, when we go, and I'm actually going to jump out because I always think a visual is actually a little bit easier to see. So when we are in Practice Ignition, let me just go to proposals here. You create your proposal, and so let's say I'm in a draft. Actually, let's just go into the one I was going to create here. So let's say we've created our proposal here. You simply hit send to client. Now, when you hit send to client, that will automatically send out an email that includes a link to their proposal. They click on the link, and literally what opens out in their browser is this. So there's no other password or portal or anything like that.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you. And then David has asked, are we allowed to use your letter of engagement template, service terms, et cetera, if they're applicable to us?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a sample letter that we can issue out. We've also got, if anyone is an ACCA member, we've basically got a partnership with them. And I know it's usually really difficult to sort of decipher all of the different elements that we want to be covered, and ACCA do an extremely thorough job. And as of, I think, the end of this month, but I might have to confirm with that later, the end of this month, we're basically going to have a full sort of set of engagement templates and things for ACCA members. Equally, if you've got your own letter, send it over to us. We've got a formatting team. They put it into your account for you.
Yeah, so if I could just dive in to add to that as well. Behind the scenes, I've been working with one of the guys at PI in relation to the ICAEW template engagement letters as well. So whilst there isn't a partnership, and whilst we're not the so-called official engagement letter provider for ICAEW, there is a set of documents being finalised as we speak, which are subject to legal review, of course, but once they've been reviewed, we're confident that they will meet ICAEW requirements as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That definitely. We aren't sort of affiliated, we're not sort of only affiliated with one particular board. It was more that I know that's coming in the next couple of weeks. So if you are wanting to get going sort of immediately with it, that's in the very sort of short term. And ICAEW, I think, will be hot on its heels afterwards.
Excellent. Thank you, Alice, and thank you to Dave and Graham. Let me just, Anne, for the engagement letters, do they cover personal tax and probate engagements as well? If not, is it possible to add these myself? So can you add elements?
Absolutely. So if I just jump into our practice technician platform again, basically all of the content comes from the library. So in the library, we basically got your services section, and you've also got your terms section. We don't limit you to the number of templates you can have in there. So if you do have a sort of sole trader versus limited company sort of set up there, you can have as many different versions in there as you want. The way that it works is, if you go into services, any terms that apply to a particular service, pop them into the terms tab, and these will then get dragged into the engagement letter. So your engagement letter is going to get completely customized out automatically depending on the services that you put in. And I know that we definitely have personal tax sort of standard examples in our service library. I don't think we have probate in terms of our normal sort of samples that go out, but definitely ACCA will have that, and I believe ICAEW as well. And if not, send it over to us, we can pop it in.
Brilliant, thank you. And then Sandy asked a question that I don't know what the question is, so I'm just going to read it out. Having never operated in the US, Sandy, So what about the AICPA in the US? Is there an engagement letter for them?
So we are completely global. We have loads and loads, hundreds and hundreds of firms over in the US. I've never worked there either, Simon. So I'm going to have to back that over to something that we hopefully can follow up with. If you could pop your email either in the chat box, or if you wanted to give it to Simon separately, our team can follow up with you.
Brilliant, thank you. I've got that, Sandy, so I can make sure that I'll make a note when I turn the video off, and I'll make sure that happens for you. From David, please don't apologise. It's questions like this that everybody else is thinking but they're not asking, so don't apologise for asking any questions. Does the template include a GDPR policy, Alice? Do you know?
Yes, I believe in our sample service, I'm almost certain there is basically a paragraph on GDPR. That was something that when GDPR came out, I think it was 2 years ago now, 2.5 years ago, we were completely sort of hot on it, because obviously that's one of the most important things for you. So yeah, there is a GDPR.
And I can confirm from the ICAEW side of things, the template terms of business that I sent over to the gang, yes, there was a privacy notice from a GDPR perspective as well, because it was a real headache for me to go through it. It's not my bag, but I had to go through it, and it was just painful. So yes, after about 10 hours looking at this thing and falling asleep, I can confirm there is a GDPR notice on the ICAEW side as well.
And Carl will be reciting that word for word at the end.
I can't wait to read it and go to bed on it. But anyway, thank you. And just to, Christy, I've got your question as well. I think Alice will come on to that, because I've got, that's definitely a question, Christy, that I will ask before the end. So if we just go through the demo, and then I'll come back to that in a minute.
Yeah, Fab. So let's hit play again on the demo. Thanks for all your questions, guys. It definitely helps kind of answer as we go along anyway, just because it makes a bit more sense. So we just come out of our payment schedule. So our client knows exactly when they're due to pay you and when. And then we've actually got the payment page, which is, to be honest with you, one of the biggest developments that we've had since Guy's first initial thought of creating an automated sort of engagement letter tool. And what this does essentially is it's actually an inbuilt payment processor. So your client at this point enters in either their direct debit or credit card details, depending on what you've chosen to offer to them, at the point of them actually sort of signing up with you. The benefit of this, obviously, is that you've actually got their payment details from day dot. You're not going to have to chase anything up. It actually basically guarantees your cash flow. You know that on whatever those dates are that the payments are due to come in, they're actually going to land in your account. So that's one of the main benefits. I guess another benefit is from the client experience. They don't have to sort of send, do bank transfers, set up a standing order, anything like that. It's all very seamless for them. And actually, it's something that I think a lot of accountants, a lot of our partners have been a bit nervous about in the past, thinking their client's not going to be that keen on sort of signing up in this sort of way. We have a seamless feedback that it's a very seamless process, essentially. I think people are so used these days to basically paying for things in this way that it really doesn't sort of frighten off the client. And the most important thing is that, you're kind of protecting your own cash flow as well. So ultimately, this actually removes your debtors. There are another benefit as well of having an integrated payment system within Practice Ignition is that your payments are always going to be integrated with your contract. So what that means is that if you make a tweak to your contract, there's a scope creep problem, you need to add more payroll service, and you need to actually increase the amount you're charging for something because you're doing more than you originally were. One tweak in the contract, and that automatically updates the payments. So you're not having to go into another app. You're never having to check to see if anything's actually, are they lining up? Are they mismatched? What's happening? It's all coming from Practice Ignition, and we're basically monitoring the whole thing. And it makes it a lot easier for your client as well. So it's safer for you and your cash flow. It's easier for the client, and it also means from an automation and admin perspective, you're not having to juggle loads of different sort of pieces of loads of different tools. We then got, and I should add, actually, I've made this not a requirement in mind, just so I don't have to bore you by popping in sort of my my fake credit card details. But you can make it a requirement, so they physically have to sign it when they sign up to you. Simon, do you want to?
Yeah, just quickly, you may have said this and I may have missed it because I was reading another question that I'm going to ask you in a minute. But so that payment mechanism, is that Practice Ignition's payment mechanism, or is it, how does that work? And does it link with Go Cardless was a question that I had on the registration page. So if we just tidy that one up whilst we're talking about payments.
So we have our own inbuilt payment processor. So what that means is that if you go into, for instance, a particular client, let's go into Yolana's yoga studio, you can basically click into the payment tab and you can manage all of their payments from one place. If there is anything like, if there's, for instance, a failed payment, we automatically email them with a link to add in new payment details. We automatically email you. All of your payments will appear on your Practice Ignition dashboard. You don't have to have a login or an account with any other tool. So we're not using Go Cardless. You don't have to have that other tool. It basically is all seamless within Practice Ignition. We are powered by, sorry, carry on, Carl.
Alice, can I just dive in? This was one of the reasons why we as a firm moved over to PI, was the integration of the payments. And I can't emphasize enough how important this is. There's almost a flippant side to me that says if your product's good enough, the clients will sign up regardless of whether you send them an email, a PDF, or a brochure on gold leaf paper. But for us as a firm, the business critical thing ultimately is getting paid. And what we found with our old way of doing it, where we didn't have the engagement process and payments joined up, was that we had quite a bit of leakage on our payments, which last year cost us 80 grand. So that's what made this software, just such a no-brainer for us, was the tying up of when a client says yes, We've actually qualified them, but we've got the payment details, and we know if their card's going to expire or if their DD changes. So yeah, for me, this is the killer part of the software.
Thank you. And just, I've got a question on the pricing for the processing of payments. I don't need that sort of regurgitating now, but if there's a link to wherever somebody can find that, if you could share it in the chat box for me, Cal, then I'll reprocess that. So I can do it like that, Karen, rather than going through the numbers. That would be great.
What I can tell you is we, as GoCardless raised their prices at the end of last year, we are now considerably more wallet friendly.
Brilliant, thank you. More wallet friendly. That's a phrase that I don't think I've heard for a long time. Thank you. And then just to confirm from Yogesh, integrated payment system replaces something like GoCardless. So it is all included, so you can ditch GoCardless if you want to, basically.
Absolutely. I mean, also, I think we should add here that we are very, very sort of receptive and flexible around however you want to onboard with Practice Ignition. So if you wanted to sort of say, right, we're going to see out a few contracts with whoever we've got signed up to GoCardless for the rest of that year, and then move over to Practice Ignition payments, you know, we're asking you to kind of rip all of your clients away immediately from whatever you've got going on. You can be flexible about how you kind of onboard it. But I mean, I think, as Carl said, it's kind of a no-brainer to sort of have it all in one rather than managing loads of different tools.
Brilliant, thank you. And Keith shared in the chat box about how much he's enjoyed moving away from GoCardless for payments. He wish he'd done it. Earlier. So I hope that answers your question, Karen. If you want something more specific than that, then obviously let me know, and I'll sort that out for you. Brilliant. Right, I'll let you get on. I'm conscious of the time, Alice.
Yeah, no worries. So basically, the last page of the proposal, if everyone's sort of back with me, press play, resume again, is the engagement letter itself. So basically, we've separated it into different pages so that your client's not sort of having this great big long sort of doc to scroll through. So it's basically the engagement letter here, and all of these different fields, so the dates, the names, the service information, the billing information, the body of the actual letter, and then any sort of, as I said, specific to those services terms that you want to kind of add in there, have all been automatically dragged in. So this whole thing took me about 3 minutes to make. It's really, really quick. So your client signs and accepts. We hope it's a legally binding e-signature. And that is what will trigger all of the automation side of things. So some people will use Practice Ignition completely solo, and they won't actually integrate it to that many tools. But if you do want to use the integrations, I can't recommend them enough. That's something that we've poured quite a lot of effort into in terms of our product team. So to jump into our apps page, you can see we've got a load of different integrations here. So QuickBooks and Xero are the two sort of general ledgers that we integrate with, and how that works. It's probably actually easiest if I jump back into my presentation to show you a bit of a visual here. So I've used Xero as my example here, but you could sub in QuickBooks and it would do exactly the same thing. So basically, behind the scenes, Xero and whatever workflow tool you're using are kind of synced up with PI, but aren't yet kind of really coming into action. But when your client signs that proposal, that triggers all the automation. So we've discussed payments. They're kicked off, they're happening automatically, they're being collected and dispersed to your bank account. We automatically generate invoices in either Xero or QuickBooks. Again, I'll just stick with Xero so it's not too wordy. Basically, we'll generate the invoices in Xero on whatever your billing schedule is. And one key thing to note here is that we don't just generate one particular invoice you then need to replicate out or mark as recurring or tweak at all. Our invoices are completely synced with your contract. So they will automatically appear on whatever your client's billing schedule is, whatever the service is being billed for at that time. And your payments will actually sync with those invoices as well and be marked as reconciled. So not only can you hop into Practice Ignition to see all your payments, how they're being mapped out, go into each individual client, as I kind of showed you earlier, but also your ledger is actually going to sort of mirror what's going on there and show you what's come through successfully. On the workflow side of things, your services and practice ignition in that library are going to be linked up with a set of jobs for you in your workflow tool. So when your client signs that proposal, instantly, all of those tasks you need to complete for all of that work for that client are instantly being laid out in whatever workflow tool you've chosen. So we integrate with Zero Practice Manager, Carbon, Center, whatever it might be. And the brilliant thing about this is one of our partners was saying to me the other day is that they know if they are doing any kind of work for their client that isn't in, they're using Carbon, isn't in Carbon, they know it's scope creep, because only jobs that they've actually contractually agreed to in PI will be in their workflow tool. So if you're doing anything outside of your workflow tool, that's scope creep, and you need to go back in, tweak the PI proposal, it'll update the payments, it'll then update the job. So it's fantastic that this kind of happens. It's an ongoing sync rather than it just being kind of a once-off. Go for it, Simon.
Brilliant, Alice. Thank you. The scope creep analogy, that's the first time I've ever heard that, and I really like that. So if it's not creating a job in your practice management software, then it must be scope creep. And you need to go back. That's a really, that's really, really useful. Thank you. On the registration, and I've got a couple in the Q&A as well on the integration aspect of it.
Yeah.
Does it integrate with Iris and Digita, or are they in? Is that more difficult? I noticed the ones that you mentioned are fully cleared based, so I can imagine they're easier to integrate with.
So, Simon, can I field that one very quickly? I mean, I'm sure Alice will fill in any gaps. But this was the first question that I asked as well, in particular around Iris, because like 23,000 other firms in the UK, we use Iris. We've built our processes around Iris, put it in 10 years ago when it was the thing that you had to use, and we're kind of stuck there. The challenge with Iris, and this applies to PI, it applies to Go Proposal, it applies to Xero, it applies to QuickBooks and everyone else, is that Iris is a bit of a closed shop. And it's very tough to integrate a cloud-based package with a desktop-based package. On the flip side, thankfully, I've got a good relationship with Steve Cox at Iris. So he's fully aware of my desire to see this joining up, even if it's just a halfway house of some sort, even if it's that we can get, and this is not a product confirmation, this is Carl sitting in the middle here, even if it's that we can get a report out of PI that can be fed into Iris through some very backwards method, like a CSV import or something, of some way of getting the two to link up. But yes, I can say from my halfway house position, I'm waving the flag on this, and I'm confident if anyone can get in, it will be PI.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you. And the same applies with Digita, yeah?
So I'm not personally having the conversations with Digita, but we have exactly the same limitations with Digita. We need to remember that these software houses, they're very well funded and they're not stupid. They know that they need to be migrating to the cloud just in the same way as Microsoft Office is. We sometimes dismissively regard cloud software as being quite new and quite small and quite amateur. Actually, some of the world's leading enterprise software like Salesforce, Microsoft Office and so on is now hosted in the cloud. And they know they need to get there too. They just need to undergo their due processes indoors. And once they've done that, I've got no doubt that we'll be knocking on the door, and I'll certainly be waving the flag for that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Carl. And then just on your question, Yogesh, I'll acknowledge that, and I will make sure that pricing information is delivered either in the email with the recording that we're doing today, or before we finish off. Brilliant, Alice. Thank you.
Absolutely. Again, I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to kind of whiz through my slides onto the kind of sort of community side of things. Oh, actually, I'm going to contradict myself. I want to mention one thing quickly, and that's an integration with a tool called Zapier. So I don't know if any of you use Zapier, or if it's something that you're new to. Basically, Practice Ignition integrates with a tool called Zapier. So do thousands of other apps, and Zapier actually allows you to integrate the apps that are plugged into it. So because of that, Practice Ignition can actually integrate with thousands of other apps. And I imagine, especially in the current climate, a lot of you probably will have brought even more of your firm's processes onto a cloud-based tool. So whether that's something like shared storage, so whether that's something like Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, whether that's a task tool like Asana, or even something sort of like Trello. Basically, Practice Ignition can tap into those. So when your client signs that proposal, as well as that, the payments piece, the Xero piece, the QuickBooks piece, the workflow tool piece, we can also do things like automatically add your client to your list in MailChimp, your marketing list. We can do things like automatically create a folder in something like Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, automatically create a task in something like Trello or Asana. And I really won't bore you with the hundreds of options that are there, because go to Zapier, you'll see how many apps there are. But the real beauty of this is that Practice Ignition will not just sort of do your engagement letter, it's actually going to sit among the kind of map of other tools that you are inevitably going to be using more as time goes on. And if you can get everything to sort of sync up together, you're going to get less discrepancy going on between sort of data sources and that kind of thing. And it also just means you're saving a lot of time. So that is a fantastic tool. Thoroughly recommend you check it out. And if you do want to know more about that as well, definitely recommend getting in touch with a member of the team, and Simon and I will give you details about how to do that at the end. So just moving back onto our partners, because you are essentially, it sounds incredibly sort of cheesy and kind of, you know, business best practice, but really you are what guide our product, our users. And this was actually somebody's sort of feedback on us this week. Basically, Kay Godfrey from Permalink says she's literally never had a bill unpaid in payments. So just kind of jumping on what Carl said, it is a no-brainer to kind of have it all in one, because it means that you literally won't ever be chasing up anyone for payments again. And we have such an amazing community of people who use us, and generally speaking, people absolutely stick with us once they've sort of signed up. So a stat actually was that only 0.8% of people choose to leave Practice Ignition once they've joined up. And given we're a monthly subscription software and you can leave us at any time, 0.8 is sort of a pretty microscopic percentage in my mind anyway. And the reason for that is our community. So as sort of Carl introduced himself as the sort of head of accounting, which again is a sort of Australian term, basically we've really invested in making sure that we're not just a load of techies who are building something that we think is great but isn't actually working for your firm. We are really plugged in to what is going on in every single region. The key sort of updates, listening to sort of the actual conversation about what you guys need. And it also means if you have got a technical problem, we've got a load of accountants or ex-accountants in our team who are often, you know, the absolute best place to kind of fix that within sort of product sense as well. I also wanted to let you know about something called Product Board. And this is basically where, if I can find my right tab, I'm one of those awful people that has a million tabs up at once. But basically, if you go even into your trial account or your actual account, you can basically click on the Product Board, which is where you can actually submit your query. So if you basically have a suggestion of something that you want, you can submit it, it forms a queue, and then our product team will work from that. So we listen to exactly what you want, and it really does impact the direction of the product. So just hopping back over to here. And when you sign up to us, I think this is one of the biggest reasons why people do stay with us so long. When you sign up to us, you get your own customer success manager who will onboard you for the first 3 months, and they are there for all of your questions. It's a real person, it's not a bot, who will basically really work with you to kind of get you set up in terms of your content, team training, making sure you know exactly how to use the product. After that, you get your own account manager who is actually there on a more kind of consultative basis to really make sure you're getting the most out of it, and to sort of help you with any projects you want to kind of put forward. And then overall, the amazing global community that we have. We've got so many different partners across the world, and genuinely, they are, you know, if we have someone who's looking into us but they're not that sure and they're thinking, oh, I quite like the idea of using Carbon with PI, but how would that work? We've got so many people who are such kind of PI veterans that they love sort of jumping on a call or sending over their thoughts via email or that kind of thing if you do want to kind of help out. So it's a really kind of engaged community. I want to also touch on where we actually see the product going, so I think that's really important. We received quite a lot of funding last summer, and we've invested that mainly in the product, to be honest, just making it as brilliant as we can for you. So in technical terms, we're bringing in the flexible billing editor. What that means in practice is that we are going to be able to offer you literally any kind of billing schedule you want, whether that's every 3-month billing, every 2-month billing. You might have loads of different kind of streams of project work or ongoing or hourly or whatever, and you can literally bill that out absolutely seamlessly. You can do that currently on our platform, but it's just going to make it even more intuitive and user friendly. So that's something that we've really listened to you guys in terms of what you want. We ultimately see Practice Ignition as a sort of client relationship management platform, in the sense that we really want to pull away from the idea of, right, send the engagement letter out at the beginning, that's done, okay, that's the contract sorted, let's get on with some other stuff. Your contract with your client should actually be underpinning how you work with them for the duration of that relationship. It should be your sort of compass point for, are we offering the right services? Are they working? Do they need more of this? Do they need less of that? What else should we add in for them? When did we do that work? What have the results been from that? And ultimately, are all of the services that we're offering them being mirrored correctly in how much you're getting paid? So from your perspective, are we missing out on revenue opportunities? Are we potentially not offering our client enough? And being able to have that overall process of onboarding as an ongoing process of, let's look at that client and see where their contract is at the moment. We want to sit there rather than having one sheet of a contract that we sort of sent out at the beginning. So basically, you'll get in the new product we're building, well, we're kind of adding on to our existing product, is basically you're going to be able to click into a client and really easily see exactly what you're offering for them when, and it's going to be almost on a kind of timeline basis. So that probably sounds a little bit conceptual. I hope it doesn't, but basically it's going to really help support your clients. And yeah, it's really, really exciting. That's actually going to come out in a couple of months. So that's where we kind of see the product going. We've had quite a few questions already. I don't know if either Carl thinks I should be adding anything onto that, or if there are any more kind of burning questions that are coming in now. I think that's, I'll hand over to Carl briefly, but then let's open the floor.
Yeah, sure. So, Alice, I think you did an amazing job there of running through the product. I think that what I'd like to do is just touch on it from a firm owner's perspective of, I guess, where we at D&T see the value of, first of all, the concept of proposal software, and then secondly, the management of income. So from a proposal software perspective, it doesn't matter which package you choose. It really helps us sell the products that we do. So to give some background to that, at D&T, we take on around 400, and it's about 400 to 500 clients per year. So we take on very roughly 40 per month, which is 2 per working day. And historically, we did written proposals, i.e. a formal letter going out in the post. We then moved on to email proposals. We then paid some designers a load of money to design proposals in InDesign and so on, and then we would manually edit them, and it was a really cumbersome process. And the problem that we found with that was that because it was part brochure, part proposal, we didn't always change things in there. And we had one franchise network that we looked after where we were actually running loss-making for 2 years until we realised, simply because the initial proposal we sent out was wrong, it hadn't pulled in the right bits and pieces because of manual error. So the proposal, it's not absolutely essential, and you might be thinking, why do I need proposals? But it's like washing your car before you sell it. Certainly if you wash your car, it's not going to stop you selling it. So that's the proposal side. But for us, the key here has been the revenue management. So we were quite early in adopting monthly payments in our firm. So we moved away from time-based billing after Simon, but before most. And we've been fixed fee for several years, and then value-based where possible. But the challenge with a fixed fee, and it might be a challenge that resonates with any of you who've been fixed fee for some time, we were standing order at first, and we had the idea that we would increase the payments every year by inflation. You know, back when we used to raise a client an invoice for, let's say, £500 year one, then £525 year two, £550 year three, we would build in that inflationary increase. With standing orders, it was almost impossible because you had to put a physical form in front of someone and get it signed. And with direct debits, it was really cumbersome to do it because you'd have to go cardless and tell them each individual payment that you want increased and how much you want it increased by. So the fact that there's a system that not only can make sure that you capture the payment details before engagement, which is absolutely vital, might not seem it at the time, but try ramping up your numbers and you'll see the problems magnified. The fact that it's just taken care of rather than having a spreadsheet with DD signed up, DD to do, and then an administrator going through it, chasing everyone up. Yeah, that's been a huge, not only a time saving, but of financial benefit to us as well. But going forwards, the fact that we can automate the price review side of things as well and apply price reviews by service line. So, for example, we can increase our personal tax returns by 20 quid. We can increase all year-end accounts by 5% and so on. What that allows us to do is to make sure that our turnover goes up in line with our direct costs, because our staff always come in asking for pay rises. We just forget to pass it on to our clients because it's such a horrible job to do. And it's actually one of the essentials that we need to do. We haven't been as diligent as we wanted to be over the past few years because we've not had the software to do it. And it's eroded our margins. You know, our margins have slipped down from what was a very healthy margin to more like 50%, which is sort of industry standard nowadays. That industry standard is because margin has been depleted by license fees. It's been depleted by team members' payroll going up, but us not passing it on to our clients. So from a revenue management perspective, yeah, that's where I see the real benefit of this is. But as I say, a nice proposal, it doesn't hurt your chances of selling.
Thanks, Carl.
Brilliant, Carl. I've got lots of questions, so I'm a bit nervous about the 10:30 cutoff. But there's two broad questions, Alice, for you.
Yeah.
Firstly, how long does it take to set up? So, do you have any data on whether it's a 5-minute job to set up, whether it's just a plug and play? Does it take months to get organised and go with it? What's your findings on that?
That was a short answer, but it completely depends on the firm. Because if you can imagine, you know, we work with some top 10 firms who have got a vast library to sort of sort out. Equally, we've had people up and running within, you know, a couple of days. They've got their client signed, or even a day, they've got their clients sort of completely signed up. So I wish there was an easy answer to that. All I will say is that you know, we want to support you getting as many people sort of using it as clients sign up to it as possible. So we work with you to do it as quickly as possible. And from your perspective, we've got a formatting team who literally get all of your content in there. So it's just a question of learning it, really.
And can I just contribute a very quick bit of advice from somebody who's implemented loads of software in their firm? Don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. I think that you can get very hooked up on the nuances of the engagement letter, the nuances of your service library and so on. And actually, with these things, as with most software that you put in, it does make sense to rely on the advice from the supplier, which might not be perfect, but start there and then tweak later, rather than obsess over the details in the early days, because that obsession over the details is almost certainly what will hold the process up. It's what will make it feel like a cumbersome task for you and ultimately not beneficial. But that doesn't just apply to PI, that applies to every bit of software you put in place.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to put the URL of the sign up in the chat box for everybody. Is there a free trial, Alice? And I don't think you touched on price neither. How much it is?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely roll through pricing. So there is a free trial. I really actually recommend that everyone on this call who is thinking, God, that does look quite interesting actually, just sign up for the free trial. You don't have to put credit card details down, but just have a little whiz round. A member of our team is always always available to contact. You can, there's a pop up their face and things. So if you do have any questions, please do get in touch. But yeah, the free trial is definitely a brilliant way to kind of have a play around with it. Let's take a look at pricing. We have 3 different packages, mainly based around how many clients you have. So we've got the starter, the professional, and the scale. So all of these have unlimited users on them. So we don't want to cap the number of team members on each plan, partly because we want any member of the team to be able to use it, if that's the way you want to, do it. But that was kind of Guy's philosophy. So starter is up to 25 active clients. That's really if you're just starting out. Professional is up to 250 active clients, and the scale is sort of for, when you're in the thousands of clients. And there is sort of a sliding scale between each of those. So when you hit 251, you're not having to immediately go up to scale. You can sort of add on additional clients there. And then we've also got our payment fees down here. And as you'll notice, as I said earlier, GoCarders have recently raised their direct debit cap to £4 per transaction, and I'll sit anywhere between £2 and £3.
So that bit at the bottom, that's the charges for the payment rates
Yeah.
that Yogesh was asking about earlier. So you couldn't just cut and paste that URL, Carl, into the chat box, and then that will save me a job later. That's great. Then that will solve that problem. And then the next question, just while you do that, brilliant, Alice, thank you. Can you just show us what it looks like from a customer perspective? So when you set the proposal up, if you do you do it over the phone? Do you recommend that you sit down with a customer and do it? What does it look like? How's it set up?
Again, really up to you how you want to use it. We don't say you do need to do it in front of the client. So a lot of our partners will have the meeting, and literally within the sort of 5 minutes, once they've sort of either put the phone down or close the Zoom call at this point, or the client's left the room, they'll basically whiz through and set it up. And if you to look at how we actually set up a proposal, you simply click into the proposal section. My internet will play ball. New proposal, and then just kind of whiz through those tabs there. And as I say, it takes sort of about three or so minutes for me to create that one just then. However, we do have a sort of client-facing way of building a proposal. So if I actually go to our founder's website, he's actually got it integrated to his website. So you can either have what I'm about to show you as a standalone link that you use just to build proposals with clients in front of them, or you can have it actually attached to your website. So it's what we call the web connector. And if my internet, which there we go, it's always a little bit touch and go, isn't it? Basically, your web connector will sit here, and Guy, our founder, has literally, I think, every single element of his business he offers available for people to sign up to. But you can be as flexible as you like with it. It might be you simply offer, a personal tax return online for people to kind of sign up to. Or as I say, this might be just your own link that you sit down with a client to build. But how it works is you would basically settle on whatever package or service it is your client wants. And again, how this is built out onto your website is completely up to you. It all comes from your own service library. So it's all your own content and laid out how you want it to be. You click inquire or sort of sign up. Your client then enters in their information, or you can enter in their information with them if you're sitting down with them to build this. You can review what they've just selected. They can then actually upsell themselves if they're doing it by themselves, or you can walk through with them which add-ons they might need, if they need anything from tax, if they need any setup, if they need any advisory, for instance. And then they click review and submit. Now they've got a chance to kind of review it. Now when they click submit, that automatically creates a draft proposal in practice ignition. Just moving our faces around, might even put some different screen there. There we go. It creates a draft proposal in practice ignition with all of their contact information, all of the services that they're after. And if they've done this via the website, you obviously get a notification that they've done that. Or of course, if you've actually built it with the client, you sat down and entered all the information with them, and you simply, once it's in draft, would hit send to client, or even accept on their behalf if you're building it with them. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, it does. That answers the question that Martin asked on the registration form about the website integration. So that's basically you can put the proposal system on your website, and people can self-price if they want to, if you choose to, and if they want to.
And I think, some people are nervous about putting pricing on their website. Fine. That's a whole different conversation. It's a whole different webinar. But what I really would kind of emphasize to you is, if we go back to this slide here, when we're looking at our automation, if at the front of this, before you've even got the client into practice ignition and their information, you've got a sales funnel from your website. So if someone's Googled you, that you've had a glowing review somewhere, they've been recommended by a friend, and they're actually funneling themselves into stage 1. They're then signing it. Then with all of that automation, all those different apps, Zapier is working in the background, so set up in Dropbox, added to MailChimp, etc., all automatically. The only thing you've had to do between someone visiting your website and that endpoint have been completely set up across your tech stack is hit send on the proposal. So it's very powerful to actually be capturing that information from your website, and it looks slick as well. And that's included within 2 of our plans. We don't charge anything extra for implementing that on your website.
Excellent, thank you, Alice. I'm just conscious. 2 minutes to go. If I can, I've got some more questions that I want to ask, and I'm going to pinch some more time, if I may. Just to say to anybody that's watching that's got to disappear at 10:30, there is a recording of this. I will email out the recording to you. So if you have to disappear, if you fast forward sort of 60 minutes, then you'll get the rest of the questions once you've got the recording. If that's okay, Alice, yeah?
I wasn't anticipating so many questions. It's great.
Brilliant. How do you track the prospects, or how do you track the proposals? Is there a part of the software that you can see? Obviously, you can see that it's been sent, but can you see whether they've read it, approved it?
I'm so glad you asked that, because there is never enough time to show literally all the features that we have. We've got so many. So basically, we've got on our dashboard, which is where all of your data is flowing into, you've got a pipeline tab, so you can see things just from a high level view of what's our conversion rate, how long is it taking people to accept. Mine's slightly ridiculous sort of demo account time that I can't promise 40 minutes necessarily, although actually we had some interactive accounting of founders practice. I actually saw on our Slack channel today that it was a 37 second acceptance time. So it can be that quick, but with most you'll see sort of between 12 and 24 hours will be the kind of average. But if you want to dive into that, you can basically go into the proposals tab, and you can see all of those proposals that are in awaiting acceptance. So you can see all those that have gone out but haven't been signed yet. So you can click onto one of those, and you can actually click into history, see if they've viewed it at all. Creepily, you can even see from the IP address if they have as well. And while we're kind of looking into the sort of different state of proposals, let's also show you the different sort of client phase. So whether they're a lead, whether they're active, whether you've stopped working with them, you can see them all in one place. And the fantastic thing is you can actually go into a client, see their current proposal, but if you've got any previous proposals, you can actually look at last year's, see what happened then, what did we do for them, did they ask any questions, were there any notes, that kind of thing.
Excellent, thank you. Peter, I hope that answers your question. If not, if you want to pose a second question, then that's that one sorted. David's asked, is there a way of migrating data into the system if you're using another system at the moment, Infusionsoft or Pipedrive or something like that? Yeah. Is there a way of dragging that data in?
Absolutely. So we can get your data in a number of different ways. So in terms of your client lists, if you're using a piece of software that we don't integrate with, we can basically import that super easily via CSV, get them all in there. If you're using Xero or QuickBooks, they automatically sync over. So all of your clients will, the moment you plug in Xero, will all instantly appear there. Equally, if you are using something like Pipedrive, that is fantastic in use with Zapier. So the way that can work is, your sales process might look like, you create a client in Pipedrive, when you mark them as hot lead or, qualified, whatever your process is, that will act as the trigger to automatically create them in Practice Ignition. You then create their proposal, they then sign and accept, and not only is that reflected in Practice Ignition, but that will go back into Pipedrive and will actually automatically mark in your CRM as one if you are using a separate CRM. I mean, this slightly works like a CRM, to be honest, but obviously if you've got an existing one, fantastic, plug Practice Ignition in.
Brilliant. So that kind of answers it. I've got a question from Douglas and a question as well from Anne around. Anne's just put she just answered the question. So basically, the interaction from the website or a Facebook capture form or anything like that can come into PI, and can also go out via Zapier as a minimum. But they can interact and set up the databases and keep the databases up to date if you've got them in separate places. Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of Facebook interaction, I haven't Facebook tool. I haven't personally tested that out. I believe they're on Zapier, so we'd have to look into that. But basically, anything on Zapier, and there are thousands of apps that are. It's very easy for us to get them all to kind of to sync up, and that's really the benefit of the integrations. I think it's very easy to kind of think, you know, why do I need that integration? Really, is that going to add that much? But yes, it's a time saver for you not to have to go into each of your different apps. But more importantly than that, it's keeping your data clean. Because if you have loads of different data going on in different apps, you're either going to have to accept that you're never going to know exactly what's going on in your firm accurately, or that you're going to have a clean-up day every so often to actually kind of sort that out. And anyone who does that will know that that is probably more of a headache than sorting out ICAW terms and putting them into a
Right, brilliant, thank you. And I've seen your note, Anne. Thank you, and thank you, David. Does PI take into account any anti-money laundering regulation? All of a sudden, I can't say that for some reason this morning.
AML.
So
Let's call it AML.
AML, that's right. Yeah.
So basically, that's actually something that, from a product perspective, and I cannot in any way give you a timeline because I think I'd be strung up by our product team. They hate anyone doing that. But that's something that we're looking at building a platform itself. In the meantime, we actually have a partner called BizInc, and BizInc basically builds little sort of portals for you, and it's a practice ignition exclusive product. That's the way the partnership works. And basically, they'll fully brand it out. This is one of our partners. Fully brand it out, and it basically means you can kind of put different content on there as well. So if it's a QuickBooks Zero resource or even a testimonial page, whatever it is, fab. But the important bit is the onboarding form. So what happens is your client signs their practice ignition proposal, automatically an email goes out delivering them this link. They click on it, they click on the new client section, and they fill out all their information here. They actually add in their documents as well, so they can submit, scan passport, whatever it might be. And then they click submit. When they click submit, all of that data they've given us will then be stored in a cloud storage place of your choice, whether it's Dropbox, Google Drive, etc. So it basically means that you don't have to have that awful backwards and forth of, can you just attach that to the email, and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, it just means it's much smarter and a lot more neat.
Excellent, thank you. And then the last two questions, both from Adnam. Where does it sit with DMS, i.e., so document management system, i.e., virtual cabinet, manual addition to DMS, or do you or keeping the signed LOAs in PI? So does it automatically, or can it automatically import stuff like the engagement letters or the signed engagement letters into the document management system, Alice, or do they sit in PI still?
So I'm sort of nervous of saying yes, we can move it over to whatever sort of system you have, because obviously, if it's not on Zapier, if it's not cloud-based, that's going to be impossible for a cloud-based app to kind of integrate with. In terms of your engagement letters, obviously they all sit in Practice Ignition in the sense you can go into one of your clients and you can actually click into a proposal and then see the PDF. Let my internet sort that out, but you can basically click on the PDF version. There we go. So do the signed engagement letter to have access to that in Practice Ignition. If you want that also stored elsewhere, we can, if it's on Zapier, automatically move that over into your sort of client hub. And I know that we've got a lot of resources on how Suite Files works brilliantly with XPM and with Practice Ignition altogether. So if anyone is interested in sort of updating them management system to Suite Files, or if you're a Suite Files user, let us know in the chat and we can kind of get some of those docs to you.
Brilliant, thank you. And then another question. We've been with PI, and I know you said the leave rate is very, very low, but we've been with PI for sort of 3 or 4 years, and for whatever reason we want to leave. Can we extract all that data out of PI? So all those engagement letters and whatnot that we've got in there, if we want them out before we leave, can we do that?
Yeah, sorry to hear that you're wanting to leave. Definitely that's something we'd love to sort of talk to you about, just to get some feedback. We definitely want to learn from whatever it is that hasn't been working for you. Yes, you absolutely can, simply by sort of saving the PDF copies if you want to, or alternatively you can actually export via a CSV file. So yeah, we absolutely allow you access to all of that as your data.
Brilliant, thank you. And then I'll just acknowledge Anne. I've kind of lost track of that scroll of text, Anne. So and I know the Zapier thing, and there's a connection to the CRMs and the doc IT and suite files and various. So what I'll do, Anne, is if you don't mind, is if I put you in touch with Alice afterwards, then perhaps Alice or her tech team can have a conversation with you about how that might work in order to resolve any issues you've got or any concerns that you've got before you take that forward. So I've seen it, and I'm not ignoring it. I just think it would be better handled by somebody else rather than me. Yeah, we all have lots of issues, Anne, including myself. So brilliant, thank you. And then the last question: if working on fixed price agreements, does it have an option to automatically increase the price at the end of each year? Or is it something, I know Carl mentioned earlier that you could go in and increase it by 20 quid or whatever, but can you go in and do global percentage increases? How does the price increases work?
So at the moment, you can go in and you can update your library, and that will basically update all ongoing use, all sort of updated use of that service. So say if you were to automatically basically roll over your proposals. So I should actually add, we remind you when it's time to renew a contract. And if you want to do that in bulk, we have a tool called the rollover tool that basically allows you to do that all in one go. Currently, we don't have a sort of percentage, literally type in a percentage update and then sort of whack it out. But that is in the timeline of things to come out. Again, products will hate me, but I would be surprised if we don't have that by the end of the year. Again, that's not my promise, but I would be surprised if we don't have that. That's something that is definitely on the near future kind of list of things for us to do, but there is a way around it at the moment. If you want to do it, it's just slightly less seamless than updating a percentage.
Brilliant, thank you, Alice. And I think I will just check over there and in the other place as well. We've answered all of the questions that I've seen. Apologies if I've missed any that have scrolled through on the chat box whilst we've been talking. I've done my best. Obviously, if there are any questions or anything that anybody needs to know the answer to, Alice, that they've not got the answer to, then they can contact you, no doubt.
Yeah. And my sort of parting kind of comment would be, I really do recommend just signing up for a free trial, even if you think actually we're really happy with what we've got at the moment, but it would just be interesting to see how it all works. So do sign up for a trial. I don't know if Carl can maybe post that link just quickly into the chat, or Simon can maybe sort of pop that in as well. It's, as I say, no credit card needed, but just nice to have a kind of play around to sort of get the feel for things.
Brilliant. Yeah, the link has just gone in the chat box at the end. So, and I'll make sure it goes on the email as well when the email goes out to everybody that's registered with the recording. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much to everybody that's come along, and to thank you always for the questions that you've fired in. For me, that's the best part of this conversation. Anybody can sign up and have a demonstration on their own with any of the software providers and get the usual spiel is probably an unflattering word, but you can get the usual demo. But the ability of these conversations is other people asking questions that you might not have thought about, and I just find it a fantastic resource. So thank you very much, Alice, for contributing, putting yourself on the spot. I know it's perhaps sometimes a little bit daunting with regards to knowing what's going to come up and what's not.
Love it.
But it's a testament to the confidence in the product and the way you work. And also thank you, Carl, for your contribution from
thank you, Simon.
Yeah, from a practice point of view rather than a let's flog some software perspective. So thank you very much. If either of you would like to add anything else before we disappear, please do.
Just a big thank you, really. Thanks for all your questions. It's, as I say, it's always kind of much nicer to kind of actually hear how sort of back and forth, and that's why I really do recommend sort of, diving in, start a trial, chat to a member of the team if you want to know more. It's always best to kind of actually sort of hear from you rather than watching a video or something online.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you to everybody that's been watching. Thank you, Carl, and thank you, Alice, and I will see you all soon.
Brilliant. Thank you all.
Bye.